Good morning, everybody. Just before we start the formal bit, a couple of things, really. First of all, I'm amazed how well so many of you, thank you, obeyed the request to park at the windmill, because we're now embarrassed that there's hardly anybody parked here. So those of you that didn't fancy the walk and did it unnecessarily, well, we do apologise. It must have been the £10 premium that we put on these spaces here that caused you all to go down there. But thank you very much. We have avoided the congestion that we thought might happen. The other thing I wanted to say is you may have realised we are filming this. Just a moment explanation about that. The two film guys, David and John, are from an organisation called Well Film Productions, who are based out in rural, somewhere between the Cambridgeshire and Norfolk border. And they are professional but voluntary filmmakers. And so at no cost to PU3A, they are going to be filming a number of our events over the next few months to make an advert, really, to make a showcase. So if you're on the run for any reason, then you'd be better moving to the front because your face won't be seen so likely in the film. Or if indeed you've come with somebody else's other half and they don't know about that, then that would be another reason for being at the front. If you need the loo, I think out the back, gents is left, ladies is right. Can I ask you to switch your mobile phones, that's mine as well, of course, onto silent? And the emergency exits are fairly well labelled, one to the right, one to the left, and out there, and behind me as well. Yes, thank you very much. We'll get on with things. Thank you all for coming. It is important we get a good number here. We're biting our nails as 10 o'clock approaches because according to our constitution and standing orders, if we don't get 30 people here, we have to instantly cancel the whole thing and make a new date. And I was dreading telling you the 29th person when they came in that would be the case, but no, we're okay. Okay, so in terms of the agenda, it's a pretty standard agenda for the AGM. You've all received or have got a copy of it there. There are no sort of extraordinary items on the agenda, but we'll work through it in that order, starting with apologies, looking back at last year's AGM, and then gradually, as the whole agenda unfolds, we will be starting to look at next year. There are plenty of spaces for questions and comment, so it would be better if we contained it in those periods. We'll give you plenty of time and options for that. We have got a roaming mic, so therefore it'd be better if you waited until that reached you if you've got something to say. Please announce your name because Secretary Brenda over there has to capture who says what. So if you do have something to say, please tell us your name. So without further ado, we'll move on and ask Brenda to do the apologies.
Right, the apologies I've received via email and via telephone are Merrill Hulber, Pat and Roger Dangerfield, Joy Harris, Avril Clark, Maureen and Terry Goodyear, Rosemary Knight, Connie Hunt, Dave Grundy, Angela Turner, Graham Patterson, Connie Yarwood, Alan Stevens, Dorothy Elan, Jane Morgan, Tricia Wedley, Eric McNeil, Ronald Wright, Adrienne Just, Peter White, Patricia and Bruce Bailey, Carol Abel and Stuart Osborne. If anyone's left apologies with the ladies at reception there, I'll pick them up afterwards. But is there any other apologies from the floor? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. So the next item on the agenda is the minutes of the AGM held just a year ago. You do have or have had a copy of those, but just to run through the main points, they cover changes in the committee roles. We talked about the success of the relaunched Tea and Talk. Gosh, was that really a year ago? A number of new items of equipment purchased, including the PA system, which you can see in use today, and the gazebo, which you can't because it's kind of not October sort of equipment. The finance report talked about our reserves remaining healthy, and the annual accounts and report were carried by a vote. We talked about the membership fee being set at £10 for 24-25, remembering, of course, that the membership fees are always set a year in advance, not just the next year, but a year on. And there was a change in our constitution as well that is contained in last year's minutes. And finally, we appointed AZETS as our auditor. So the next thing is the acceptance of those minutes, for which we need a proposer. Okay, I'll take Alan Locke, because I saw his hand go up first as a proposer, and a seconder. We'll take that lady. She's got Robin Mitchell. Thank heavens. Acceptance of minutes. Do you wish me to sign them here and now, Brenda? Good point. Right, all those in favour of accepting the minutes? A lot. All those not in favour of accepting the minutes? Anybody abstaining? No? Okay, looks unanimous then. Thank you. So, any matters arising, item 4, that's 3 on the agenda. Any matters not covered elsewhere on the agenda? No? Okay, looks like we'll have you home for lunch now. Okay, we'll move on to, therefore, the chairman's report. Yes, I want to talk about the year that's got us to this point. That was my second year as chair. For those who are not aware, the normal term for a chair is 3 years, so I'm now entering my final year, assuming that I'm nominated in a minute. Interesting times. So first of all, let's just have a look at the level of membership that we have. This is showing an interesting phenomena that we see every year. The orange column is our membership in August this year, so just under 2,400. The blue column is September, where it dropped to 2,100 and something. That's quite normal. Happens every year, and it's caused by the members who don't renew at our renewal period finally leaving the organisation. So we always get a drop at that point, and it's usually a drop that compensates, in a sense, for or offsets the growth that we've had gradually during the year. So nothing to be concerned about. It's worth having a look at the previous few years, because you can see the drop happens every year. And the orange lines show you that gradually our membership has grown since 2021. Prior to that, it's a slightly distorted picture caused by COVID, so it's kind of not really relevant to look too closely at that. But the eagle-eyed amongst you will spot that this year we didn't quite hit the level in August that we had the previous August, just slightly below it. But the September drop was not as great as the previous September drops. So we've still ended up with more net members in September than we had last September. And we remain as being one of the largest U3As, second largest, I think, in the country. And therefore, in many ways, we're very happy with the growth that we've got. We don't need to go out searching for more, really. So the growth in membership numbers is not really a priority for us. We don't need to urgently grow the membership. We're very fortunate in that respect. If we had more members from this point onwards, it would require more groups and more events, which therefore needs more group leaders. And it also puts a huge strain on our resources and processes. If you just take the membership renewals, for example, every time that goes up, it's more work for the membership secretary as well. So therefore, we're quite comfortable without looking for extraordinary growth to be where we are at. But attracting younger members is important. We're not talking about teenagers here. We really want those who have just retired, maybe, and are full of the energy that they've got left over from work to come in and take roles on the committee and as group leaders and generally invigorate the organisation. But we do know, and we've been considering this challenge for a number of years now, it's not easy to find those people. The increase in pension age, the fact that companies generally no longer run pre-retirement events, so it's quite difficult to find these people, and more and more grandparents involved in looking after grandchildren means that the flow of people at that young end of our sort of target age range is hard to find. So we are where we are. We do maintain a steady presence in local magazines, normally free of charge, that we manage to persuade them to put small articles in. But it does seem, whether it's the magazines or a few events that we do to try and attract new members, it doesn't really matter because the vast majority of people on their membership forms put that they found Peterborough U3A by word of mouth or via friends. So it doesn't matter what we do, you people in this room are our best advertising medium. And so thank you for that, but do keep telling your friends because some of them might just be that little bit younger, you never know. The Pulse magazine, I was asked a couple of questions about this prior to the AGM, so I particularly just wanted to talk about this. I picked July as an example month simply because that is the last time we issued a paper copy as well. Now, we only issue paper copies to people who have no email address registered with us, which is about 2% of the total membership, if that, or those who particularly ask for a paper copy. So you can see we have almost all, about 2,200 members in July who had an email address who would have received the email version. And we know in July that there were 1,500 hits on the magazine. Now, we don't know whether a husband and wife in the same house are looking at it together, so it's getting two people, but nor do we know whether some people are looking at it twice. So we have to take it as a mean average, but it does get fairly healthy readership. It's worth just saying, though, that the paper copies we only do 3 times a year. So if you are registered for a paper copy and you can read and access a digital copy, we would much prefer that you relied on that and cancelled your paper copy, because it's hugely expensive for us to print and post paper copies. And in effect, all those people who are paying their membership fees and not getting a paper copy are subsidising those who have a paper copy. So we fully accept and do want to support those members who don't have digital access. But if you're doing sort of preferring to have a paper copy when you could read the digital copy, we'd prefer it if you thought again about that, simply because it is a cost that we don't need. So Pulse will continue to be and has been the preferred medium for us to get news to you. It avoids the fact as well that we then don't need to bombard you with lots of emails. Where possible, we try and limit it to one a month, which is the Pulse magazine. We've had a good year in terms of events. We created a new role, that of events manager on the committee, and Hilary took that on with some gusto, because we've had more events this year than ever before, and they're listed up there. Not just sort of entertainment events like Tea and Talk, which continues to be healthy, but also quiz nights, craft fair, which was the first time we'd done that. First aid courses we hadn't had for a long, long time, and the older drivers workshop was the first time we've ever done that. And I think this year was the first time we'd ever done 60s and 70s disco as well. So a lot of energy there. And they are important because these events, because they're designed to draw people out of their groups. It's all too easy to just go along every Tuesday afternoon or Thursday morning to your group, but it's nice to mix with other people as well on a wider basis. So these events, you don't have to be in a group, you can just turn up. So we've had a very busy year with events, and I think we can look forward to the same again. I really want to, at this point though, talk to you about the committee. I, by accident or design, in my working life, ended up managing a number of management teams. And I can tell you that the committee, as you have them at the moment, is as effective, as committed, and as competent as any management team that I've ever worked with. You really are very, very fortunate to have a team of people who not only work together, but commit to individual responsibility and get on with the job. And it's due to that committee over a number of years, really, that this organisation runs as smoothly as it does, compared to what we know is the case in some other U3As who do face some significant challenges. So your committee, everybody mucks in, everybody pulls in the same direction. So this is my public thank you to them. And if you get a chance, we do get a few emails in saying thank you to the committee, and we welcome those, but always say thank you to the committee for doing their bit, because they're doing a little bit more than just being members. And I'd extend that as well to the group leaders and their web buddies and the assistants that help the group leaders, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're an activity provider by our own members, and that's an important thing to remember. And what we've done with the groups this year, again, was with a new group coordinator, Adrienne, who's not too well at the moment, so she's not here today. But smooth transition moving from Hilary previously to Adrienne during this year, and the groups continue to grow and diversify. The group leaders are the glue that hold the organisation together. They don't always quite do it in the way we'd like them to, but they still do it. And that's to be recognised and applauded, because they're the people who put themselves out to pull together the activities that you attend and want to go to. Obviously, all that culminates in Activities Day at the Fleet, which is always busy and always successful, and is a major headache for us, actually, because we can't find a venue better than the Fleet, that's bigger, that's got the car parking, that's economically priced, that's accessible to people, But it is a job to squeeze everybody in there, but it's kind of a nice challenge to have, really. And as I say, that was all done with Adrienne new in the role as well. In terms of other things that have been going on, really, we continue to develop the website. You may not be aware, but I'll just briefly explain that we do not use the standard national U3A website. A number of years ago, a decision was taken by us and other U3As dotted around the country, about 20 in total, to actually commission a different website platform. At that time, it was felt that the national U3A one did not meet our requirements. And so what we have locally, and as I say, shared with about 20 other U3As, is a sort of a designer website, if you like, that functionally does more of what we need it to do, because it is much, much more than just a website. And we're pleased to say that although the National U3A have relaunched their own platform, we believe ours costs us probably about half the cost of if we were buying the actual official U3A one. So it's been a good investment. Pulse newsletter, as we've talked about, continues to be our main method of communication. And in the last few months, we have acquired a new web-based telephone system. At no cost. It comes as a sort of a charitable donation, if you like, from a phone provider, which means that, we don't get a huge amount of contact at the committee level from members, but when you do, if you use this phone number, you can just press the right button and get through to the right person. You don't actually have to know their own number, their own personal number, and it makes it much easier as well for outside organisations to speak to the right person as well. So that's a new addition this year. The really useful group, which we formed about a year ago, which I hope many of you will have heard of them, but they're just people who will help us. We've had a couple of them here today managing the car park, and they continue to be available to do little jobs around the place that otherwise it would fall as an additional set of responsibilities to the committee. So should you have an hour or two to spare, doesn't matter what on, then do tell us, because we'd like you to join our really useful group. Once or twice a year you get invited to tea and cake as well, if I can lure you with that. But it doesn't matter what you think you want to do. We will find a role that fits what you want to do, whether it's car parking or making tea or sitting at home answering the phone for us or making calls on our behalf or filling in a spreadsheet. We'll find something that fits what you want to do and can do when you want to do it. I would say that engagement across the organisation remains a challenge and a dilemma. We'll talk a little bit later on about changes in the committee, sort of in the coming year. But the committee's 12 or 13 people, which is a tiny proportion of the total membership, who make this all work. And without a committee and the sort of officers in it, the whole organisation couldn't function. So it is quite challenging for us to engage with such a big membership. We know, for example, that at our tea and talk, we regularly get 80 or 90 people, which is much better than it used to be. But U3As who have maybe got 300 members still get 80 or 90 people at their monthly meetings. In some ways, I shouldn't shout too much about this, because if we got proportionately the bigger number, I don't know where we'd put it. But it means that we regularly see 80 or 90 people outside of their groups, but that's still a small proportion of the total membership. So engagement can be a challenge. And towards the tail end of the year, coming back to the committee, one of the things that really engaged our brains was looking at the committee's, I'll call it consistency, continuity and contingency. Because the committee has to deal with not just today's issues and challenges and opportunities, but very much we have to keep one eye on the future and think about how are things going to work in the future. And you'll hear about some changes in the committee shortly. I guess you will know that Terry, our treasurer, is stepping down as at today. And that triggered quite a lot of consideration about how we could protect the committee from unmanaged or unpredictable change. And so we've started to do that, and I'll talk to you more about that when we look forward to next year. So that's really, I think, pretty much what I wanted to say. In terms of my report of the year, it's quite heartening that there are no massive highs and lows in it, because that would indicate that we were kind of on a bit of a rocky roller coaster of a road. We're not. Things run very smoothly. But if you've got any questions, then now's the time to ask. And Norman will be wandering around with the radio mic. Don't forget to tell us your name if you've got a question, please.
It's not so much a question. It's could we give a round of applause for the committee and the readers and supporters?
Thank you. A lovely thought. Thank you very much. There is going to be further opportunity to ask questions later as the meeting unfolds, and sort of a general comment session right at the end. But having said he's stepping down, I'll now hand you over to Terry.
Thanks, Ian, and hello, members. Am I close enough? Yeah, I can hear myself. I must be. It's really strange. As the treasurer, I've spent all year emailing various people about groups and what's going on. So I think I know who's running most of the groups, but I don't know what you look like. So there's loads of people out there saying, "Oh, now I know who he is," and I'm thinking, I've no idea who they are at all. But so hello, everybody. As you'll see in your agenda, as your treasurer for the past year, I'm going to present some comments on the financial statements in our annual report, and then I'll invite any questions you might have. Ian introduced Norman earlier on. Norman is handling the roving mic, and I'm assuming that in the section that comes later, Norman is going to be appointed our deputy treasurer for the coming year. So watch out for him wandering around with a mic, and you'll know the face. You won't be seeing Maureen Goodyear, who's coming in as the treasurer. She's on holiday at the moment. So having presented the financials and having dealt with any questions, hopefully to your satisfaction, I'm going to propose motion 1, which is for the AGM to accept the report. I will be proposing it, and I will ask for a seconder from the floor, please. And we will then vote by show of hands, as we did earlier on with the minutes. Following that, I'm going to propose motion 2, which is to set the membership subscription for the 25-26 year. As Ian pointed out, we're now in the 24-25 year, and the motion for subs is for the year to follow, not for the current year. And that's going to be to vote for that to be at a maximum of £12 per individual member. Again, I'll ask for a seconder, and we will then vote by a show of hands. That will conclude the Treasurer's report section, but Ian's going to invite me back again for item 9 on the agenda, which will be to propose the motion to appoint AZETs, who've prepared our reports for some time under previous names. They're now as part of the AZETs group, to have them as examiner of our accounts at the end of the current 24-25 year. So before moving on, I'd like to thank the members, you, and the committee, you around the place as well, for entrusting me with the formidable task of following Mary McCarthy as Treasurer for the previous 10 or so years. As it turned out, my personal belief in the importance of maintaining cash in society put me at odds with the committee's no cash policy on membership fees, and that is the reason I've decided to stand down. Nevertheless, it has been a rewarding experience, and I do feel privileged to have had the opportunity to serve our community in this role, so thank you for that. So, on this slide, you can see, hopefully, copied out what you see on page 4 of your report. It's the statement from AZETS, our financial examiner, and it says, "I have no concerns and have come across no other matters in conjunction with the examination to which attention should be drawn in this report in order to enable a proper understanding of the financial statements to be reached. This confirms that the finances of Peterborough U3A continue to be excellent, with income and expenses well managed by the committee and by leaders of the groups that charge the members' fees to cover hire of venues, ticket purchases, speakers, and so forth." So, in some ways, it's a standard statement that you would expect to find in a set of accounts. I'd like us, though, to just reflect for a moment that this organisation of volunteers cooperating together for everyone's well-being manages a business with a turnover of £100,000. With due business process and care, passing external financial scrutiny year in, year out, as something we should not take for granted and we should take pride and satisfaction from. So we're now moving on to page 6. And on page 6, some of you may know this already, but I just think it's worth commenting because not everybody's at home with accounts. On page 6, you might notice that cash at bank and in hand last year was some £67,000, and this year is some 65. That's so there's a reduction of the amount of money in the bank, but there's still a lot there, and it's mainly due to the membership fee being held at £10. So that our expenses exceeded our income. But this is fine. This is one of the things we decided to do. Our reserves are very healthy. We've decided to pass that on to the membership by not increasing the membership fee. And that's going to happen again in the current 24-25 year. And in proposing the maximum of £12 for the 25-26 year, we're giving the committee the opportunity to raise the fees if they need to, but I think the overall intention is still to hold it for £10 next year. That's the intention. Looking at net current assets, that's increased by £8,000 from 55,000 to 64. But really, this is just an accounting convention because in one year we were holding a load of money in the form of things like theatre tickets that had already been bought, and this year we're not holding so many. So it's more of an accounting convention as to where the money was in things that we owned. You'll see that the creditors has fallen by more or less the same amount. So you can see it's sort of moved from money in the bank to money actually in assets. On income funds, we talk about restricted funds and designated funds, so I thought I'd just comment on that again. The designated funds are the accommodation bank account and the social bank account. These are funds that are contributed by group members over and above their membership fees. They're monies that are contributed for arranging activities by the group. They're held solely for that purpose, and as far as the charity is concerned, they're therefore designated. They're not available for general use. So the general unrestricted funds are the main charity account that everybody's subs go into, that pay for all the expenses like the hire of the hall today for the general charity use. And it's just worth reminding ourselves as a small item, but it comes up from time to time. If an activity group closes with money in its balance, that's say in the accommodation or the social bank account, that money is no longer designated and it goes into the main charity account. I just make that point because sometimes a group might close and the members of that group might think that that £100 or so that's left over would be spread among the members at that time. That's not what happens. That money goes into the general fund. So I don't think that's happened in the last year. I just think it's worth reminding us of that's what happens. On the next slide, we're looking at page 9. Page 9. Donations and legacies. You can see that membership income, which falls under the heading of donations and legacies, is actually down slightly in 24 compared to 23. But you'll see that gift aid last year went up compared to the year before. So gift aid comes in the financial year after all the subs. So we got gift aid last year for membership subs the year before. So if somebody's thinking, how come membership went down and gift aid went up, that's why there's a year's delay from one to the other. And in sales within charitable activities, we might come back to that in a little more detail. But the general fund is the main charity account, comes out of membership fees. That's all our ticketed events, things like the barn dance, the disco, and the quiz night. The accommodation, where you can see £46,000 having been spent. That's the halls, the speakers, the tutors, all groups' activities self-funded by the group members are not paid for from the U3A membership fee. And similarly with the social fund, the £40,000 or so that was spent there is all the money that was collected from members and spent on day trips, theatre and the occasional travel group. So the next slide, we're looking at page 10. Interest receivable under investments is simply the interest we received on the reserve accounts that we hold. Charitable activities. What did I want to say about charitable activities? Oh yeah, just to go through again then, that the general fund is the main fund that comes from all the membership subs and out of which those expenses are paid for. So the £5,000 or so that we've paid for accommodation in the general fund, well, that covers all the events that Ian was talking about earlier on. 12 tea and talks a year at the Fleet, the activities day, this meeting here, various meetings for the rugs, all the times that we hire village halls of one sort or another to provide activities for the members, some of them paid for, some of them free, that all comes under that. And you can see the accommodation account at £41,000. That's all the cost of all the halls for all the individual activity groups, and the £40,000 for social is all of the theatre tickets and so forth. So that's where those all get allocated. Yeah. So purchases under miscellaneous expenses this year. Ian talked about what we'd spent on the previous year with all of the PA equipment and such like. So purchases under miscellaneous expenses this year include the 30th anniversary mugs that were provided for group leaders, a head mic for the chair so that when he's making presentations he can just walk around without having to hold something in his hand, and keep getting this fade and come back again stuff that goes on, so he's much better for presentations. We had a second dedicated phone for the membership team so that they can take incoming calls without exposing their personal phone numbers. So those are the sort of items that were covered in miscellaneous expenses. And I see that on the slide I put the cost of the halls on the slide that you're looking at behind me. I put the cost of the halls for the various meetings as well. So I think those are all the items I wanted to pull out. So in that case, has anybody got any questions? I'll happily answer any questions. And here's Norman, the Deputy Treasurer. Mrs. McCarthy, what are you going to do to me?
Okay, Mary McCarthy, and it's not about the accounts, Terry, you'll be glad to know. It's just a little point that in the trustees' report, where it mentions under structure, governance and management, that the constitution we use was one adopted at the AGM on the 16th of January 2021. But subsequent to that, at the last AGM, we had a new constitution, and that hasn't been mentioned in the trustees' report, because we ratified a new constitution last year. That's all I wanted to say. Just, I can see Chris over there nodding as well. That's all. Thank you. That's all anyway. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I imagine that might need to be something that we just note, Brenda, as I'm not sure whether it's a correction or a clarification to the annual report, so that's something to record. Thank you for picking that up, Mary. That's because we don't have you and Chris with your folk memory of what's gone on before picking this up in the small print. So thank you very much for that. Yeah.
My name is Anna Babs, and my question is there any way that some of the group activities we have to pay by cheque, is there any way we can do it by direct debit or backs or something like that?
Sorry, did you say Anna? Yeah, thanks, Anna. This is a question that has come up quite a lot in the committee this year. And as the outgoing treasurer, I think I'll just make some points that may be subject to, say, clarification, development as the conversation goes on in the new committee. Okay, so if I just preface by saying that. I'll pull in on what Ian said earlier about the more people that we have in the group, the more resources we need on the committee. At the moment, it's part of the group leader's job to collect all the money. And they send that money for their activity to the treasurer. Well, they don't send it to the treasurer, they send it to our bank account, into the accommodation bank account, or to the theatre group, or to the social for theatre groups and day trips. And the treasurer sees an item that comes in and says, I've just put 300 quid in the Rummy Cub account. And we allocate that 300 quid to the Rummy Cub account. And then when the bills come in from Copeland to pay the Rummy Cubs 160 quid for this month, or 80 quid, or whatever it is, we know we've got the money to pay for it. If we go down the route that you're suggesting, say the Rummy Cub group has got 20 members, instead of getting one transaction, one deposit in the bank account of 300 quid from Rummy Cub, the treasurer then has 20 deposits of 15 quid for Rummy Cub that he's got to monitor and reconcile and put through. If you multiply that by the 40 groups or so that we've got, that's another 800 transactions in a month that the treasurer's got to track. So for that reason, the treasurer, while it's been me, and previously while it was Mary, would resist what you're suggesting on the basis we don't have the resources to manage it. A smaller group might be able to manage it. Much smaller groups may even include hire of village halls and things like that in their membership fees. So instead of being charged 10 quid, you might be charged 40 quid because the other 30 quid will pay for your membership of whatever groups are available. So to me, it's a resource issue. I recognise that a lot of people don't have cheques anymore, and that a lot of people get used to paying everything by debit card. but usually when you pay by debit card for something, if you paid your £10 to for your membership of U3A, if you pay by debit card, you pay £10, U3A gets £9.68, because we pay the card management company 32p to handle that. So that's how that resource gets handled. It's not free. You think, I just pay by debit card, and what's the difference? But so you've got that 32 pence is paying for somebody to manage that. Well, we've got volunteers doing that, not getting paid for it. So, sorry, I'm now going on quite long, but you can see that I hope you can see that my resistance to going down this line is based on, this is all volunteers, and we just don't have the resources to handle it. It may be that the committee from here on in finds another way to do it, but I just sort of lay that out, and I hope you will find that's us reflecting back that we're a co-op of willing volunteers, and we just don't have the resources to do that. It's not like going to Starbucks, where Starbucks have got people in the back office and it's part of the cost of your coffee. So does that answer the question?
Can I just add something to that? There's also a factor we need to consider at group leader level about that, because one of the advantages of using checks is that they can sit on them for a while. So if there's a cancellation of some kind, they can just tear that check up. So it doesn't even touch the bank at that point. If that same process was done by an electronic means, whether it's debit card or bank transfer or whatever, if it's then gone into the bank, that then adds further cost and time for us to refund that, because there's then another bank charge for us to make that refund. And it involves the group leader in extra work, because they've got to ask Terry to make that refund. So there's more time there and another transaction charge. We would love to explore different ways around it that work for everybody. But at the moment, we can't find the way that sort of ticks all the boxes. But that doesn't mean we're not trying to find that way. Because, as Terry said, and as you will all know, less and less people use cheques. And less banks are issuing checkbooks routinely. So we will probably get to a day where we will need to find a different way. But we're just not there yet.
There's another question coming, if you wonder why I'm standing here.
Sarah Byrne, I'm just interested in the paper copy reference that Ian made, that what are the costs and how they increased over the years, and is there a limit being set to make you make a decision on whether you continue with the number of paper copies that you issue? How is that going to be managed in the future, if it does need to be managed in the future? Thank you.
You're thinking about the comment on the cost of Pulse in the earlier slide, are you, Sarah? I'm sort of, in a way, I'm giving Ian a chance to think about how he's going to answer, but I'm wondering whether I've got the answer for that. Is that something you want to handle?
Yeah. We've got no intentions of dropping the paper copy because we do not want to withdraw support from those members who need a paper copy. That said, I have to say it's kind of a poor relation of the digital copy, because the digital copy, apart from Anne sitting at the front here, who's the editor of Pulse, apart from really the time that she puts into it and a small cost for the platform that carries Pulse, there are virtually no costs. The paper copy, to be honest, when we made the decision, going back a couple of years now,
to look at paper versus digital before we launched the digital version. Roughly speaking, I think there was a cost of print and postage for 3 copies a year of the paper one of something like a £5 a member. So when you got a membership fee of £10, you can see we couldn't possibly stand £5 a member without a 50% increase on membership fees. And that's still only 3 times a year. If you, that £5 I'm talking about is from a few years ago. I don't know off the top of my head what the current cost is, but it will be more because print and postage has gone through the roof since that period. So, but let's just imagine it was still £5 for 3 copies. If we wanted that to be 12 copies a year to match the digital version, 4 times 3 is gets us to that 12. So it would be 4 5s a year. So therefore, your membership fee would change potentially from £10 to £30. Now you could say, well, surely that would only apply to the people who wanted the paper version. Well, you might be right, but that would be another layer of administration that we'd have to have a 2-tier membership fee with everything that involved, and then people changing their mind halfway through the year. So I think, to answer your question, we've got no plans to change where we are at the moment. We can sustain it where we are at the moment, but we will encourage people, if they don't need a paper version, to opt and read the digital one, which is always more up to date than the paper one anyway.
And it's interactive.
And yeah, it's interactive. We can put links in that take you to directly to other things. Yeah. So Alan's just quantified that the print and posting bill for the whole membership back in that time was about £10,000 a year. So, you know, in our view, not just because of cost, but because of the immediacy and the freshness of having it online, I wouldn't say it was a no-brainer, but it was a decision we felt was for the good of the organisation. And we're not likely to want to change that, given the financial implications of it.
Is it also worth mentioning that PU3A has to pay for third age matters?
Yeah, and Anne has just raised another point, and of course, included in effectively your membership fee is a subscription to the national magazine, Third Age Matters. And we have to pay for that out of your membership fee. So we don't get £10 in the first place. But you can, if you don't bother to read the Third Age Matters, on your profile you can log in to your profile, and just by removing a tick or adding a tick, I can't remember which way round it is, but you can decline to receive Third Age Matters, which means you are saving a copy coming out to you that you're just putting in a bin, and you're actually saving the organisation money because we then don't have to pay for that copy that you're not getting. So it's, if you are comfortable with reading on screen, then that's another way in which you can help the situation.
Okay, Jan Lavender. Oh, sorry. I'm just wondering, do we have a cost for the Third Age Matters printed copy? Is that known?
I think it's £4 a member per year for the coming year.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your questions. Thank you. So this is me now presenting to you the motion to accept the annual accounts and trustees report. So I'm proposing the motion as treasurer. Could I please ask for somebody to second that? Brenda, take your pick. We've got, I don't know, I could... So that motion's been seconded. And can I put it to the meeting? Can I have a vote, please, on the motion to accept? Thank you. Are there anybody against? No. And any abstentions? No. Thank you very much. So that then moves me on to the second motion, which I hope I explained earlier on. I think the intention of the committee is to stick with £10 for the year to follow the current year. We're in 24-25 now. This is for 25-26. But they want to have the opportunity to move it if they need to, but it would still be, if you vote for this motion, within a maximum of £12 per member for the year to follow this one. That's my proposal. Can I again ask for somebody to second that motion, please? Quite a lot. It's seconded by Mary. Thank you very much. And thank you for the other people who put their hands up as well. So that's been proposed and seconded. Show of hands, please. Yes, agreed. Thank you. No. Any abstentions? That also is carried unanimously. So thank you very much.
I would just say I forgot to use my gavel. There's one time a year I get to use it with this. Thank you, Terry. Right, we now move on to the election of officers, which is handled by Brenda as secretary. The officers of the organisation are required in charity law, and they are a chair, a vice chair, a treasurer and a secretary. You will see over the next few minutes some changes in names come up from those that you are accustomed to in some of these roles as we get moved through the committee. Bear with me, I'll explain what's happening when we've got them all up. So Brenda, would you like to give us the nominations for the officers, please?
Nominations for the officers are Chairman Ian Gray, Proposer Eileen Merrin, Seconder Derek Bicknell, Vice Chairman Sandra Mules, Proposer Connie Hunt, Seconder Joy Green, Secretary Brenda White, Proposer Peter Best, Seconder Marie Hayes, Treasurer Maureen Goodyear, and Proposer Frank Fenton Coupland and Stuart Osborne. In the case of the officer posts, there has only been one nomination for each vacancy. Therefore, the nominees are elected unopposed.
Thank you very much, all of you. And I'll ask Brenda now to do the remaining committee nominations.
Then the remaining ones are Louis Verdigem, proposed by Christopher Wareham and seconded by Julia Wareham. Alan Locke, proposed by Peter Homden and seconded by Paul Baines. Norman Bell, proposed by Elaine Herbert and seconded by Terence Goodyear. Linda Brimmel, proposed by Janet Hopper and seconded by Janet Ross. Anne Ritchie, proposed by Jane Morgan and seconded by Brian Parsons. Adrienne Just, proposed by Florence Warrington and seconded by P.A. Plested. And Jan Lavender, proposed by G. Bates and seconded by F.J. Bates. There are 7 people have been nominated to fill the 9 vacancies for committee members, and they are elected unopposed. Filling the vacant positions will be considered at the first meeting of the new committee.
Thank you, Brenda, and therefore, because there was less than the maximum number of nominations, we do not need to have a vote for this, which makes things somewhat easier. So welcome to the committee, all those who were nominated. And as I say, I'll explain that in a moment.
Me again. So I propose to appoint AZETS Holdings as the examiner of the accounts for 25-26. As we said before, this is no change. They've been doing it for us and doing a great job for years. So that's the proposal. Can I please have a seconder? Brenda, can you see somebody whose name you know? Anne Ritchie, thank you. Can I please have a show of hands for yes? Thank you. Against? None. Abstentions? None. Unanimously in favour, Brenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you for being such a supportive audience. So far, I shouldn't say this, you know, it's gone very smoothly. Okay, we get to a point where I'm still the chair, so I can talk to you about the coming year, 2025. And I'll start by, you know, once again bringing that phrase back about committee consistency, continuity and contingency. I mentioned a moment or two ago that you would have seen some name changes in the way the committee is resourced. And we have prepared for, in the last few months, anticipating today's nominations and the people, a realignment of our PU3A committee. Just rewind a little bit, and some time ago we recognised how important it was for the critical roles on the committee to have some form of understudy. And at that point, the one we started with was the treasurer role. And Mary McCarthy was treasurer at the time, and Terry became her understudy. And consequently, when Mary stepped down, it was a very smooth transition of Terry stepping in, because we already had somebody who knew the systems, knew the role, and could carry off a seamless transition. Terry made a decision to not seek re-election and caught us out a little bit, in the sense that we hadn't got round to getting another treasurer or would-be treasurer in place. And so we on the committee had quite a sort of examination of our resources and systems and roles and people, and made a decision to realign the committee roles, and I'll come on to that in a second. So the first thing is leaving the community of the committee, and I'll choose that word carefully. I'd just like to say thanks and goodbye to Terry for his support, not just while he's been treasurer, but as a member of a hard-working committee, and whilst he was the deputy treasurer as well. So thank you very much, Terry. We've gained 4 new nominated members of the committee in Sandra. In fact, can you just stand up and do a twirl, Sandra, so people can spot you and there's somebody else to complain to. Sandra is the newly nominated and elected vice chair of the committee. Maureen, as we've spoken, is the new treasurer, but she got a pre-booked holiday, so he's not here today. Norman, who's been wandering around with the mic, is our new deputy treasurer. So you see what we've done there? We've sort of moved from having no treasurer suddenly to having 2. It's a bit like buses, really. And another role that we recognised was in need of an understudy was the role that Alan does, which is website management and admin. And Jan Lavender has joined the committee to become the deputy to Alan. So we've introduced a number of understudy roles. I won't necessarily go through them all because they do need to be ratified at the first committee meeting, but many of the key roles, we've restructured the committee so we've got 2 people doing it. Because, surprisingly enough, the committee do take holidays. So it's not just preparing for when they step down, it's also holiday cover. And sometimes, you know, they get a cough and a cold or fall over something and they're unable to perform their job for a while. So therefore, again, having an understudy just makes complete sense. But what that's caused us to do is to realign the whole committee, or we will be doing at the first committee meeting, because we are limited in how many in the Constitution we can have on the committee, whether that's nominated as people were today or co-opted, which the committee has the power to do at the first committee meeting. So because of that, and because of our wish to have these understudy roles, some roles are still going to be participating and doing their job, but they're going to sit as an extension from the main committee. So they won't be listed as committee members officially. They'll still be doing their roles. Hilary will still be doing events. Shirley, I will imagine, will still be doing the accessibility role. Connie will be looking after tea and talk. Joy's still going to sort of keep the venues database running. And a new lady, Isabel, is she here today? Yes, there she is joining to become deputy groups coordinator to give some extra support to Adrienne. So the overall kind of official numbers of the committee hasn't changed. What's changed is the roles that some of the committee doing, and we've added this extension committee of some roles. So you won't see a lot of difference other than we'll be more prepared for any eventualities because we've got better resourced committee. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank those people who... We did put some fairly pressurised messages out in the last few months about needing the committee. And in a sense, I guess I'm kind of preaching to the half converted, because the fact that you, ladies and gentlemen, have come along to the AGM, you're already kind of connected and thinking about how you can support. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But for those people who went that step further and actually put their hands up and said, yeah, I think I can help on the committee, or joined the rugs, then thank you very much to those, because they're the people who are going to make the whole organisation run in the future. So one of the big things we'll be doing early on is implementing this realignment of the committee at the first meeting, and then begin the sort of induction programs for these new members to assume their specific roles. There is no member on the committee who does not have a specific role. Everyone has a specific role. There's no free rides. A few other things that we'll be doing this year. We've just about signed off a new policy on, it's a bit of a mouthful, what we call third-party promotions. We have a number of approaches every year for people who want us to do something with them. And this could be, we've had a couple of medical research agencies want to access our members because they're doing research on something that the demographic of Peterborough U3A and the size of the U3A is relevant for. And so they sort of approach and say, can we access your members? Can we talk to them? Can we email them? Can we actually pay them to participate, in one case? We also get other local charities who say to us things like, oh, at your U3A you have a lot of people, can we have a stall there? We get members of Peterborough U3A who have got a charity they support, and they say to us, can I run a raffle at something, activities day for my charity? And we realised that every time all these approaches were made, we were having to consider the specifics of it. And we hadn't really got a policy. We checked with other U3As and none of them had got a policy. So we have just about ready to sign off a policy now that clarifies when these outside bodies, whether internally through a member or completely externally approach us, we've got a standard sort of decision tree about whether we'll work with them or not. Because some of them, in a sense, we have to protect from a GDPR point of view, your identities. So it's, it is a complex area, but we've just about got that sorted. We'll continue to develop the rugs roles, but I make no mistake, more pressure is starting now, and we'll continue. We have to find somebody to help us coordinate these rugs, to join the committee ideally, because at the moment it's falling to an extra role, and getting these rugs who are willing, but they've got a load of different talents and availabilities, so it just needs coordinating and organising. And we need somebody to do that. It's not a huge task. 99% of it could be done at home using phone and computer. But we need a body, a warm, breathing human being to do that. So if you fancy that, talk to me, please. We need to do more to find tomorrow's group leaders. It is a fact that our group leaders generally are in the upper range of our age groups, politely said. And we need to think about when they decide to step down. And we need to find those group leaders soon. Not only to take over the groups that currently exist, but also the ones that don't exist yet that we need for the future. And something that you're going to see this phrase come about a little bit from me. I just want to remind everybody in this room is not a customer of PU3A. You are a member. And everybody's a member. Everybody chips in. I think there is a risk that sometimes there's a mindset develops with some people that think we are an organisation that supplies services to people of a certain age. Well, we do, but only because our members are good enough to make those services work. They're not because we're doing it for... Well, we are doing it for fun, because we wouldn't do it if we didn't like doing it. But it's not like you can complain to a paid member of staff, because we have no paid member of staffs. So, the point, and it was well made, I'm not criticising the point about checks earlier on, is because there are reasons involving manpower if we went some other way other than checks, as we discussed. And that's true of a number of aspects of what we do. We're members, not customers. If all of our 2,000 odd members each gave us half an hour a month, we'd have the equivalent of 6 full-time employees. Just think about that. If all of them, and we'd be able to do so much more with all those half hours. It's an interesting figure. We'll see how everything unfolds. But the thing about 2025, we're in a good place. We finished last year in a good place, and we'll continue to build on that. And that building and being in a good place is down to 2 groups of people. It's down to the members, people like you, and it's down to the people who do a little bit more than that, like the committee and the group leaders. And I would just like to make sure that we say thank you to all of those. So thank you. We are about done, except for any other business. So this is the bit where you can kind of throw anything up in the air if you like, and we'll either sidestep it and say this isn't the right place, or we'll try and answer it.
I'm Jan Lavender. One of my proposals would be that we put something in perhaps the next few editions of Pulse regarding people declining the non-digital copies, and make sure that they go into their profiles and change that, because I think probably inertia has set in with a lot of people, and it's costing us. So that would be one thing that I'm proposing.
I should just say, Jan, that the proposals of this nature can be taken away by the committee. They're not for this meeting for a decision, because the proposals have to come in advance. Can I just answer that one? I suspect if we want to address that, because there's only 120 people, I think, who have an email address registered with us, but also want the paper copy, I suspect we'll do it by talking to the 120 people rather than using Pulse, because it's such a small audience.
Yeah, okay. And something that Terry picked up on, again, you can take this to committee, but would it be useful to ask all the group leaders to put their photograph on the group page, so that people know who they are, and if new members then want to go along to one of their meetings, they know who to look for, rather than walking in blind to any one of those groups?
We'll take that away and kind of think about it. Alan, who is the website person currently, the group pages, the front side of them, are available for the general public to view, and they have to be, because the general public, when thinking about becoming a member, needs to see what we do. So we're very careful about what information or images go on those front pages for data protection reasons. But there's always things we can do with improving visibility, and we'll need to think about our best to do that. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? One towards the back.
I was just wondering, how often do the committee meet, and what sort of day it is?
Okay, we meet formally once a month for a Wednesday morning, on the second Wednesday of the month. We're pretty good at managing the time, 9:30 to 12:30, and it's in the room next door to this one, just along that corridor. That's the formal meeting. There are other ad hoc meetings, but they tend to be few and quite fast and done quickly. A lot of them we might use video conferencing, and that tends to be very specific and not the whole committee. It's just 2 or 3 members who are focused on a particular issue. And then the committee role involves dealing with emails or phone calls, ad hoc, not many, and you kind of do that when you want. I'm sure some of the committee are alarmed when they get emails from me at 6:30 in the morning, but I get up early and my head's clear and I tend to get stuck into it. But you do it when you want, really, to some degree. We're not in a fast-moving business, so we don't have deadlines that things need to happen by. We just encourage us to work to a similar timescale, and it works. Does that answer things? So once a month formally, Wednesday mornings. One Wednesday morning.
Excuse me, and can I have the lady's name?
Anna Babs, that was again. Any other questions, comments? No? Okay. Well, not much more for me to do then, other than say a date for your diary is next year. We haven't got a venue booked yet, I don't think, or is Jack Hunt booked? I should just explain the reason we moved from Jack Hunt to here is because Jack Hunt got their diary in a mess and realised they'd booked a wedding or something on the same day. And so therefore we had no choice but to move, and it's quite difficult to find venues at relatively short notice at weekends. So therefore we moved it here. We may well be somewhere different again next year. For those of you interested, of course, the quiz night's coming up on November the 22nd, and that is at Jack Hunt, and they are letting us have the hall for nothing as compensation for messing us about. So if you don't ask, you don't get, do you? Yes, that was that. So before I hit the final slide, just a reminder, and I haven't got all these dates in my head, but we're in the run-up to a busy period. We have got, as I said, the quiz night on November the 22nd. That's a Friday evening. Hilary is taking entries for that now, either as teams or as individuals, doesn't matter. We'll join you into a team. The craft fair, which I can't remember the date of. 20th of November, so leaflets with Hilary for the PU3A craft fair. And then, of course, the Christmas party is not long after that, which is December the 5th, I think. Nobody's disagreeing with me, so I think it might be right. But if not, look in Pulse. So that is about it as far as the AGM is concerned. So thank you very much for attending. And I hope that the coming year with Peterborough U3A is everything you want it to be. And if it isn't, you need to volunteer to make it what you want it to be. All right, thank you very much for coming. I'll close the meeting.